Second Timothy chapter 4, verse 7. I'm kind of front loading some episodes or installments because in a couple of days I'm not going to have the availability to do this while we're out of town. So anyway, thanks for being okay with me wearing the same shirt and all that silliness. Anyway, Paul writes in verse 6, "For I am already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time for my departure is near." Can't pass up saying again, don't lose track of the sight, of the fact. We're only temporarily here. And knowing that, it gives us I think, for me, it gives me a sense of appropriate urgency about living my life, making my choices. And the terminology I have grown to use is to steward my life and opportunities. And in verse 7, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Those are three very powerful word pictures. We talked last time about I have fought the good fight. How many of the fights I fight really aren't the good fight? They have more to do with my preferences than they have to do with God's design. The older I get, I'd love to say the temptation to fight those less or unimportant fights goes away. It doesn't, but I do feel a broader sense of, or a better sense of, the difference between just a fight and the good fight. So, and then he says, I have finished the race. Now, Paul, I don't know that he was a sportsman, but he pretty routinely uses sport as a metaphor for faith in the Christian life. Realized that in his day, mainly the sport was what we have as Olympic style events: boxing, wrestling, running, jumping, track and field kinds of things. And here he talks about, first of all, he talks about the fight. Okay, that was part of this. Now I'm talking Century 1 Olympics. That was part of the games. And then he says, I have finished the race. He didn't just say, I've run the race. No, he said, I have finished the race. All of his readers, whether they were into sports or not, and oh, by the way, the way we get into sports is really not the way they got into sports, because the world was so different in so many ways. Anyway, but for us, we can realize, Paul said, I have finished the race. Think about this. It's not, I entered the race. It's not even, I ran in the race. I have finished the race. This is one of the things as I've gotten older that has come to mean more to me. Finishing. It takes a unique kind of motivation and drive and skill to begin something. But it takes more than that drive and skill of beginning in order to finish. The people I have the highest regard for in my life are the people who I put in the category of finishers. I know lots of starters, but I only know a few finishers. I want to be a finisher. Paul, what's he talking about? What race is he talking about? It's his life. In one way, his life was a race. His ministry was a race. Now, I think about this is just me. I don't know about you, but for me, when I am thinking about a race of any kind, especially track and field kind of race, right? What's the object? The object of that is to win. My 14-year-old granddaughter has become, in junior high, quite a little race star. She's just got, she's got gold medals. Of course, they're not gold, but first place medals that are a collection that's becoming very impressive. I love that for her. But Paul's not talking about a race that you win. He's talking about a race. The object is not to win that race, but to finish it. I have a client, I've told you about this guy before, at age 60, he was challenged and he took up the challenge to get off the couch and run. Literally run. But distances, not just run, but run distances. He and one of his buddies, he, at the age of 61, entered the Oklahoma City Marathon. It's a marathon that memorializes the bombing of the Murrah building and the loss. And so anyway, it's a marathon, 26.2 miles. His thing, he didn't enter that race to win. He knew better because there are professional runners in that race and they will win. It's very rare that an amateur will ever win a modern marathon. There are many reasons for this, not the least of which it requires a unique kind of training to win a marathon. But you know what? It also requires a unique kind of training to finish the marathon. I don't know if you've seen, they're out there on the interwebs, videos of people. One of my favorites is I couldn't really tell if it was a man or woman. I think it was a man who literally crawled across the finish line of a marathon. That their objective was to finish the race. I don't think there are many Christians who seriously take that as their mission, or as an aspect, at least, of their mission. I know a lot of us, including me, there are times when it got hard, and it still gets hard. And I'm tempted to just say, no mas, I'm done. It's too hard. But I don't want to do that, right? There's this emotional part of me that I'm done. But there's another part of me that says, okay, press the pause button, but don't be done. Finish the race. I fear for our country. I fear for the church in our country as well, because our country is no longer populated with a vast majority of finishers. It's unfair for me to throw a rock at every, millennial or Generation Z. That's not fair. But I will say, the social media is full of folks in that category who are not yet finishers. They want somebody else to finish for them. But you know what? It's not just the millennials and the Gen Z people. There are people my age that want somebody else to finish for them. It doesn't work that way. Are there times when I need people in my life on a level of trust and confidence who, when I reach the end of my resources and my tank is empty, that they can carry me forward in the race? Yes. Until I can get my feet back under me and get my legs moving again so that I can finish the race. Even Paul writes about that. Bear one another's burdens. And by doing this, we fulfill the law of Christ. But then he goes on a little later and says, but each one must carry their own load, as if to say, help the weak, okay? But it's still their load. And oh, by the way, when you're weak, you need people in your life to carry you along. So that, what's the purpose of that? So that they'll finish the race carrying you? Not so much, but so that you can regain, you can push the reset button somehow until you're ready to finish the race. It can happen in a lot of ways. First of all, you need people that you have developed this kind of a trusting relationship with. You don't get there with a brief acquaintance or a shallow friendship, because the kind of confidence that I need to be able to release my trust to a person to carry me when I need to be carried in this marathon race of life, I have to have experience with them to know that I can trust them. Okay, personal friends is what that comes down to. Some people are going to have 50 of those, right? And some of us, we're not going to have 50. We'll be pretty, it's pretty generous to say we were going to have 5. And the older I get, I don't know that this is everybody, but my discussions and insight from other people in my age group is that the older we become, the smaller the number of people in that circle of friendship that are on the level that they can carry us. Years ago, when I was in family ministry, our men's ministry had one of its aspects was accountability groups. And an accountability group can be very powerful in a man's life if you know the people in that group well enough to know that they won't hurt you when you fail, but they will offer any assistance that you can take to help you not do that again. You've got to have those kinds of people in your life. A second aspect is the community of other followers of Jesus. It might be small groups, it could be a Sunday school class, but these are relationships. If you think about concentric circles, okay, my friendship group, the bullseye. And if your spouse is not in that bullseye, you got to figure out a way to get them there, okay? The next one is these people that I know well enough to trust them with accountability. And then the next circle out is the community of believers that I invite into my life. They invite me into them, and my son-in-law's favorite phrase is, we do life together. I don't think any of us are going to be able to finish the race without that. Some form of that. Well, Okay, I've gone on long enough. I'll shut it down and see you next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.